Hello and welcome to another Wednesday streaming English session where we hope to improve your English and take it up to the next level. If this is the first time for you watching us, thank you for doing that. My name's Craig and I'm from mansioningles.com, where you can learn English for free with our courses and material over there. Today, I'm really happy to say hi again to Lynne from putitlikethis.com. Hi, Lynne.
Hello, Craig. I got it right this week. Yeah, I always. Hi, everybody. My name's Lynne, and I'm from putitlikethis.com. I'm an online teacher, and I teach exclusively online, tailor-made classes. If you go to my website, you can find out more. And I've been doing this for a while now with Craig. That's why I can now point in the right direction.
We're getting really professional.
We're getting
with
really
this
professional
streaming
now.
thing. We can actually point in the right direction.
It's only taken us 1.5 years, I think.
We're slow learners, but we know you're not slow learners. You're fast learners. And speaking of speed, what are we talking about today, Lynne?
Oh, we're talking about cars, but I thought you were going to say, speaking of speed, have you seen all our learners who've joined us on the chat?
I haven't, but let's say hello to the early birds
say hello
today.
Yeah, the ones who are the fastest off the starting blocks. You see,
Anna is here. Anna from Valencia. Good to see you here, Anna. Lovely to have you with us.
And Carlos from, I don't know where Carlos is from.
Where are you from,
Norma.
Carlos?
Norma comes regularly. I think Norma's from South America, isn't she? Norma?
Yes, she is.
Yeah,
but I can't remember. Which country is Norma from? Oh, I should know this. Norma, where are you from? Please tell us.
Tell us again, Norma. I know that I think you're from South America. Hema is from Madrid.
She is. Hello, Hema.
Hi, Hema. Isma, I am not sure where you're from, Isma. From the UK.
UK.
Isma's from the UK. Oh, okay. That's a first, isn't it? Have we had anybody from the UK before?
We've had Maria Eugenia from the UK. She's been with us, but it's not usual, is it?
No. And then Christina is in Alicante. Is that right, Christina?
I thought Christina was in Madrid. Aren't you in Madrid, Christina? Where are you based?
Oh, I thought Christina was from Alicante.
Maybe.
Hema's definitely from Madrid. I know that.
Yes.
Mary, Aldo, Norma's from Mexico. Thank you, thank you, Norma.
Norma's from Mexico. Of course she
Norma's
is.
from Mexico. Thank you. No, sorry, we got that wrong.
Jao from Brazil.
Oh, great. Monica from Madrid, Nancy from Argentina, Carlos from Colombia, and Pilar. Don't know where Pilar's from, but she sounds Spanish.
Where are you from, Pilar? I think you're from Spain. Which part of Spain are you connecting from today?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Ismail, we've got crazy weather here as well. It's funny that you said that. We've had rain yesterday. And we were speaking before we went live, Lynne and I, and Lynne told me that it rained more yesterday here in Valencia since 1861.
1864.
1864.
That's what I heard on the news today. That's what they said on the television. They said that it hasn't rained as hard as it did in Valencia since 1864. I'm sure you remember that year well, do you, Craig? 1864.
Oh, yes. I remember 1964, but I know I don't because I was too young in 1964. Christine's from Gandia, very close to us.
I knew Christine was from, I thought you were from Alicante, but I knew you were from the Comunidad Valenciana. I knew that.
But you were born in France. Très bon.
Okay.
So, and we've got other people joining us. Thank you very much for joining us live. And of course, if you're watching the replay, thank you for spending time with us on the replay of this live stream. So driving, do you enjoy it?
Vroom, vroom. Do I enjoy it? Not really.
Why? Is it just a way for you to get from A to B? So you could just as well take the bus or the train?
Yeah. I mean, it's not that I hate it. I can't say I hate driving, But the majority of times that I drive, I don't really think that I enjoy it. Usually because it's like in the city, or it's kind of quite stressful. I mean, I love driving if I'm alone on the open road going somewhere exciting. Of course, I love it. But, I think driving for me lost its charm when you had three young children in the back. And
Are we there yet? Are
are
we
we
there
there
yet?
yet?
Mummy, are we there yet?
Yeah, and of course my kids are grown up now, so I haven't got three young kids in the back anymore. But I live in this city, and I've driven for many, many years, so it's kind of lost its charm for me. What about you, Craig?
It depends. Like most
Mm-hmm.
things with me, it depends. I enjoy driving outside the city, especially if it's a beautiful country road, and especially if I'm in a nice car. And we'll talk about
Ah,
cars a bit later.
uh-huh.
But I don't enjoy driving in cities with traffic and traffic lights when you're stopping and
Mm.
starting and stopping, and there's lots of traffic. And especially, I hate driving when I'm in a city that I don't know well and I don't know where I'm going. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody
Mm-hmm.
knows which way to go, and I'm slowing everybody down, and people are behind me bibbing and hooting, and I don't know
Mm-hmm.
where I am. And I hate that idea of driving around places that I don't know well.
When it's a bit stressful.
It's
Uh-huh.
stressful. But
Yeah.
outside the
Mm-hmm.
city, yes, I enjoy driving very much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we've got some comments from people who say that Norma enjoys driving.
Uh-huh.
Let us know. What do you think about driving? Do you
Uh-huh.
like driving, or is it something that you just do out of necessity?
Norma's got this beautiful picture on your profile picture, Norma. The problem is you've been joining us for so long now. And because I always see the profile picture next to it, I believe you're a tiny baby. I'm thinking you're not old enough to drive.
I think that's Norma's baby. I don't think
Of
that's
course, it must
Norma.
be Norma's baby or somebody's baby that you
It could be
love. But
Norma. Norma could be maybe 18 years old, and that could be a picture of Norma. Who
when
knows?
she was younger, but I have to smile there when I see the picture next to you, because I think you enjoy driving, but you don't look old enough.
Eva doesn't drive because she feels scared. Yeah, my wife
Mm.
is a very, very nervous driver. In fact, she hasn't driven for many years because she gets very apprehensive
Uh-huh.
behind the wheel.
The
There's an
wheel.
expression,
Mm-hmm.
behind the wheel. The wheel is what you steer the
Mm-hmm.
car with. And if you're behind the wheel, then you are driving. So that's another way of saying you're driving. And when she's
Mm-hmm.
behind the wheel, she doesn't really like it. She feels a bit scared and she doesn't drive. So I
Mm-hmm.
completely sympathize with you, Eva.
Christine has just used a word in the chat file. Okay, if you can put up hers, which she doesn't like driving. She says, Christina says, you suffered from tachophobia. I've never heard of that. Have you heard of
Oh,
tachophobia?
no, but I am Googling it now.
You're googling it now. Maybe that means, I presume, Christine, that means that you don't like. Is that something against driving? I mean, obviously it's a phobia. Uh huh. Or maybe it's being enclosed in a car. Maybe you can tell us. I don't know that word, but it's
Me
obviously a
neither. And
specialist word. Have
I
you?
did Google it, Christine, but I didn't find it. What I did find is tachophobia, which is
Which is?
a significant fear of childbirth. I don't.
Oh my goodness.
Is that like
No?
giving birth in a car? Maybe I don't know.
Oh my goodness. If you really meant that, Christine, you have a story that you have to tell us.
But tachophobia doesn't come
Tachophobia.
up in Google. Oh,
Okay.
yes, it does. I apologize. It does. It
Uh-huh.
is
What is it?
tachophobia is the irrational fear of speed.
Oh, that makes sense, because I've heard the word tachometer, which is a
Tachometer.
speed, which is to measure speed. So you're frightened of, or you're afraid of speed. Irrational fear of speed. Interesting.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and Gemma says that it's a long time. Be careful of using since. If you're using since and you're talking about the past until now, it's a good idea to use the present perfect. So I would say it's a long time since I have driven, from the past until now. And there's a connection with now because you are still not driving. So it's a long time since I've driven a car. Would be a bit better to say that, Gemma. And yeah, exactly the same as my wife, Gemma. She has a driving license, but she doesn't like to drive.
Yeah.
So let's look at
Okay.
some vocabulary, and we'll look at some vocabulary briefly, and then we'll have a discussion at the end. Speaking of vocabulary, if you're interested, I'm going to put a link in the chat because Reza and I did a podcast about driving and cars where if you want a lot of vocabulary, go listen to this podcast. I've put the link in the chat and you'll get lots of vocabulary connected to driving and parts of the car. So we're not going to go very deep into the vocabulary today, but if you want more vocabulary, then you have that podcast to listen to that will help you.
Yeah, we like talking about our anecdotes, don't we, Craig?
Yeah, we like chatting.
We like chit chat.
But let's look at some vocabulary so we can give the impression that we're actually teaching something. We've got some phrasal verbs to begin with. So pull out and pull over. What do they mean?
Yeah. And there's another one that I forgot to put on there, which is to pull in. Right. So it's funny this because the verb to pull is this to pull. You can pull a door. Sometimes you see pull and push. Push is that direction, pull is this direction. But I don't really know why we use this verb with cars. But to pull out is when, if your car is in a stationary position or it's driving in one direction, if you change lanes or you decide to start the car and then you pull out, you pull away from the curb. So you change the direction of the car. So to pull out means to go forward and in a different direction rather than straight ahead. Is that the right way to describe that?
Yeah.
Yeah, to pull out. And then we have some other so to pull out really means to change direction, if you like. You're moving forward and you're changing direction. And then we have other prepositions, pull over, which means to go towards the pavement. So the police, when they're stopping you, sometimes they have a loudspeaker and they say, pull over, or there might be a policeman in front of you saying, pull over, and they're signaling and you must pull into the curb and stop the car. That's to pull over.
And the curb is the bit between the road and the pavement.
Yeah, I had the curb where the pavement starts, like the elevation, the little step, if you like. That's the curb. C-U-R-B, isn't it?
C-U-R-B. Mm-hmm.
C-U-R-B. And to pull in is when you move the car into a parking space. Then you pull into the parking space. And when you leave the parking space, you pull out of the parking space. So we like to use the verb to pull when we are in a vehicle moving. That's it. And then we have the prepositions which describe which direction we're moving the car in. But we say pull. Makes strange, no logical sense. It's a very strange verb because pull is a different direction. You'd think it would be to push, wouldn't you? But it's to pull. I don't know.
Very common though, very common in conversation. And of course, if you pull in or if you pull over, before you do that, you must remember to indicate, which is something now, I don't know if you agree with me. In my opinion, the Spanish here in Spain, not great at indicating. I think the British are better at indicating. If indicating was an Olympic sport, I think Britain
the British
would win the
people
gold.
would do it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I remember.
Queuing and indicating, and that's it. But to
indicating is when you press that little thing and then your light flashes to show the other drivers which direction you're going.
You're signaling. You're telling the car behind you which direction you're pulling over or pulling in or turning. So to indicate is to show the people behind with your indicator which way you're moving in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And to speed
Yeah.
up is to go faster, another phrasal verb. So speed up. And the opposite, slow down. So
Mm-hmm.
we've got up and down movement for the speed. Up is to increase, down is to decrease. If you go faster, you're speeding up. If you go slower, you're speeding down, you're slowing down.
Slowing down. Slowing down. And then we have to swerve. That's that vowel, to swerve. And to swerve is to suddenly change direction without warning. So often, if maybe you're driving along and there's an accident in front of you and there's suddenly an object in your path, you have to swerve to avoid it. And if you don't, then you crash into whatever object is in front of you. Sometimes we swerve in the car to avoid pedestrians or dogs or cats or cars that are having difficulties in the path right ahead of us. And then we have to scratch. And of course, this is to scratch normally, but we don't mean that. Often we scratch our cars. So sometimes
some of us do.
Some of us. Some of us, if we're driving or we're parking often, it could be that you bump into the other car and you scratch it. It's when your car scrapes the other car and it leaves a mark on the paintwork of the car. So that's to scratch a car.
Can I say something about scratching?
Yeah,
because
of course.
It's really horrible, especially if you buy a new car and you scratch it. It's a horrible, horrible feeling. But I have a friend who I know in Valencia, and he rides motorbikes, but he used to ride motorbikes in New Zealand competitively. So he's an experienced motorbike GT racer. And obviously in his career of racing motorbikes, he had many different motorbikes and he bought them new. And the first thing he did, the first day when he bought a new motorbike, was to take the key and scratch the top of the petrol tank. And he said, after I've done that, I don't care if I scratch the bike.
I can't imagine. Can you imagine doing that with a brand new car?
You think about it. You're very nervous. You're very careful. You don't want to scratch your car. You want to keep it new, but eventually you're going to scratch it.
That's
eventually
true.
It's going to happen. Do it on the first day, and then
you lose the stress or the anxiety.
You lose the stress, and it's got history. Exactly.
Yeah, it's a clever thing. It's a very clever thing to do that, because everybody gets very disappointed the first time your car gets scratched, especially if you don't do it. I've scratched my cars, but the one that really annoys me is if I pick my car up and I see that somebody else has scratched it.
Yeah,
that really it spoils your day, doesn't it? So
especially
it's true that you can.
Yeah,
you can take away that stress. We have some very interesting comments.
Yeah,
Craig.
I wanted to say, let's look at the questions and comments before we proceed. Can I just say hello to Erasmo, who's joining us? Hi, Erasmo. Yeah, it can be very therapeutic. Therapeutic. I find driving very therapeutic. Again, outside the city, I get stressed when I'm driving in traffic. But if it's a beautiful road and it's out in the country, I love driving and I find it very therapeutic.
And then refinitivam.
That's Pilar. Pilar, that is.
Is that Pilar? Okay, hi Pilar.
From France.
Now this is fantastic, because I think you're right. She says maybe the verb pull comes from the times it wasn't cars, but it was cars with horses, and you had to pull on the reins to show the horses which way to move. That sounds perfectly logical to me. Thank you for that.
Thank you. That does sound logical.
That
but
really does.
I'm going to check that after this and see. I think that's probably true, Pilar. Thank you.
And even if it isn't true, Pilar, I'm happy that you've made a lovely urban myth.
Gemma is admitting to forget to use, I think, her indicator. Come on, Gemma, you must use your indicator, especially in Madrid. Come on, with all the traffic. And Christine says that Sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
I think Emma also forgot not just the indicator, you forgot to put the noun in that sentence. I forget to use my indicator.
My indicator. I forget to use
Okay.
it. Christine says she's a back seat driver, SEAT, because the seat is where you sit. So the seat, 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 which is a make of car in Spain. The seat is where you sit. So backseat driver tells the driver how to drive, which is very, very annoying.
And then Christine also has a question here with the difference between, oh, well, she's got two. To pull over means to drive towards the pavement or towards the hard shoulder, correct? The pavement is the part where I said the curb, which is like the little step. The hard shoulder, if other people don't know what the hard shoulder is, it's the part of the motorway which you're not supposed to drive on. It's specifically for cars that have mechanical problems. So they are allowed to be on that hard shoulder until the assistance comes and rescues them. The hard shoulder is the place where it's supposed to be safer to stop on a motorway. And then Christine's also asked the difference between the verb to swerve, to spin out, or to skid. Well, to swerve means to change direction in order. It's a quick change of direction, but you do it. You do it because you're trying to avoid something. To spin out or to skid, those two verbs describe what happens to the car when you lose control of it. So if you don't try to spin out and you don't try to skid, this is what happens to your car where the car loses its traction on the road. So if it spins out of control, the car starts to turn around sometimes or to turn a little bit, but you can't control it. It's the I don't know how a spin out happens, but
you lock the brakes. The brakes lock. And then the tires slide or skid.
They slide, and then
that happens very often when there's oil on the road, or when there's ice. If it's very cold in the winter and the water freezes, it's very slippery. So you skid because you don't, as Lynn said, you don't have traction. You don't have grip on the road, and the tires don't grip the road.
And to spin out, they do that in the Formula One. If you see the really fast racing cars, when they lose control, they go round and round and round, and that's to spin out.
And Isma, who is in the UK, says it's been a long time since I have driven. Don't use the negative, because it's been a long time since I've driven means you haven't driven for a long time. It seems like I have to pass my driving test again, as I think it's another thing here in the UK. Yeah, perhaps, maybe. Obviously, in the UK, they drive on the right, left, left or right, Lynn? Left, isn't it, in the UK?
We drive on the left in the UK.
Yeah, of course we do. We'll talk about that later. Nancy asks, is the word pull out? No, you can pull out a tooth. You can pull out a pen from your pocket. You can pull out your wallet from your bag. It means to remove in some contexts. The problem with phrasal verbs, Nancy, is that they have multiple meanings. Like take off, doesn't it? You can take off your jacket, but an aeroplane also takes off. So phrasal verbs have different meanings, and one meaning of pull out, as Lynn said, is to go into traffic, to stop, like parking, and start to move into traffic.
Okay, we had to brake, which means when you stop, to brake. To slam on the brakes is when you stop suddenly and you have to put your foot down really quickly. To change gear is, a lot of people in South America, maybe you have a lot of automatic cars. In Europe, we don't have a lot of automatic cars. We have the manual cars. So we have the gear stick, and that is to change gear, where you have to change gear. We should have really put on this as well the word, you have 3 pedals in the car. You have the accelerator, which is the thing that helps you speed up and slow down. You have the brake, which is the thing that brings you to a halt. And then we have the clutch, which is CLUTCH. Maybe you could put those 3 words in the chat file, Craig.
Yep, I'll go ahead and do that.
Because they're tricky words. Clutch. And the clutch, if you have a manual gear, then you have to put your foot on the clutch and then you can change gear. And the last verb there was to rev up, which means to increase the revolutions of the engine. And that happens when you press your foot on the accelerator and you usually generate a much higher sound. It goes, is that right? That's revving up.
How does it go? Yep, exactly. Yep. That's
without the laugh at the end.
That's how my car sounds. Yeah, something like that. To rev up. I'm just putting these words in the chat. Again, if you want these kind of words like windscreen and brake and handbrake and indicator, then go over and listen to that podcast. You'll get lots of vocabulary connected to the parts of a car and driving in general. But let's move on maybe to talk about some questions connected to driving. And we spoke about scratching cars and maybe crashing. And we'll speak about crashes we've had later. But are you very practical or fussy about cars? Or
I'm
like
practical about cars. I'm practical. My dad was super fussy. His car was his...
What car did he have?
Oh, he had lots of cars. But my father used to polish them. He had special wax. Every Sunday, he would be taking care of it and polishing it. And my mother, some of you said that you have your licenses, but you actually don't drive because you feel quite nervous. My poor mother, I think she probably would have been fine driving, but every time she got in my dad's car, he was so fussy about his car. He couldn't have a single scratch, a single mark on it, that it made my mother really nervous. So after a year or two, she just said, you know what, forget it, you drive and I won't. And so my mum had her license for 50 years and she didn't drive. And I'm sure it was because my dad was too fussy about his car.
Well, I've always been
I'm
fussy
quite
about
practical.
cars.
Are you fussy? Are you?
I am. Yeah.
Well, that's the problem. Maybe that's your poor wife who gets anxious because you're fussy.
But is it a man? Is it a man thing? Because in my experience, men tend to be more fussy about cars than women. For many women, cars are very practical. It's just a way to get from A to B. Whereas many men they care more about cars. And I must just say hello to a friend of mine in the chat who's joined us from the US, Danny, because I've got a story later
hi, Danny.
about Danny that I want to tell you when we speak about crashes. And I think Danny probably guesses what I mean now. So it's really weird. Okay. It's really strange. And it's lovely that Danny's with us because he is the guy that I'm going to speak about in a few minutes. But yeah, I'm generally very, very, very fussy.
And do you polish your car? Do you polish your car? Do you take pristine care of it? Like, do you take really careful care of it?
I used to more in the past. These days, not so much because I don't use it as much. It tends to be outside. I don't use it a lot in Valencia. I only use it when I travel and see my sister. So it's parked in the street most of the time. And because I don't use it very much, it is becoming a bit neglected, which is a shame. And I feel bad about that. But I'm not the kind of fanatic that polishes my car every Sunday and cleans it 2 or 3 times a week. I take care of it, but it's mainly just there in the street in case I need it. So I don't pay much attention to it now.
My dad never liked to leave his car. At home we had a drive and we had the garage. And it was very easy to park. You could have come home during the day and you didn't have to put it in the garage. You could have just left it in the drive. There was always a parking, we had a long drive. But my dad, he didn't like dust on top of the car because it spoilt the look. So he would never, ever leave his car on the drive. He would always put it in the garage, even if he was going to go out again like an hour later. He would always lift up the garage and put the car in. And I remember that he was extremely fussy about where he parked the cars. He didn't like to park the cars under trees because birds would.
Yeah, it's acid. It burns the paint.
Oh, that's what my dad said.
It's acid.
I can see you're very fussy, Craig.
And I bet your dad, if there was like a shopping centre car park underground, and if you go down -1, so the first floor of the underground car park, it's really, really busy. There's lots of cars, and there's a danger that somebody would open the door and scratch your car.
Mm-hmm.
I always go 2 or 3 below where it's nearly empty, and I bet your dad did the same.
No, my dad refused to go into underground car parks.
Yeah, he was worse than me. He's worse than me.
Yeah, my dad didn't want to go into underground car parks.
Before Danny leaves us, let's include him in one of these anecdotes because we've got 3 anecdotes. Most embarrassing moment, any crashes you've had or accidents, and any near misses. So
well, Lynne, you start, Craig. No, you start. If Danny can't stay so long, he has to be here to witness what you tell.
Okay, well, while Danny's with us, a near miss. Danny, do you remember when we were driving my mum's car, because I was teaching in the UK, Danny came to visit, and we took my mum's car to Paris. We drove from the UK to Paris for a long weekend. Danny came to visit from the US. He lives in Michigan. And we were driving back from Paris on the motorway to get across back to the UK. And I was driving most of the time, but I was really, really tired. And I pulled over pull over. Do you remember? To pull to the side of the road, to the hard shoulder. I pulled over so that we could change and I could sleep a little. And then Danny was really tired as well because we'd been partying in Paris for 2 days, 2 nights.
All your stories involve partying. You realise this, Craig?
It was a long time ago. And Danny started to fall asleep at the wheel of the car. So suddenly I woke up. The car had hit the center of the road, of the motorway, and span across 2 or 3 lanes. And luckily, nothing bad happened.
Oh, my goodness.
Do you remember that, Danny? It's on the internet now, my friend.
He's just said, how could I forget that?
Yeah, that was very near...
If the rest of the listeners, if you noticed, Craig said it span around. That was that spinning out of control that Christina mentioned. But of course, it was the past tense. Yeah,
it didn't actually spin. We didn't. The brakes didn't lock, but because it kind of touched the center,
and then it went
over the lanes a little bit out of control, and then Danny, professionally, in my opinion, managed to take control of the car, and we lived to tell the tale. The tale.
Do you know, Craig, I wasn't going to mention it, but I actually had a very similar thing because when we put in the preparation and we thought near misses, I was thinking about that today, and I was thinking, actually I've had a lot of near misses. It's because I have this guardian angel looking after me. And I have had a lot of near misses, but you tend to forget them, and so they didn't come to mind immediately. And I had forgotten that one. It's only because you've talked to me now about that. And I remember that many years ago in Germany, when I lived in Germany, I was driving in the night with my boyfriend. It was a very similar situation. And normally he drove and I was driving. He had a lot more experience driving than I had. I was young then. I was about 22, I think. And I hadn't actually had a lot of experience driving. And I was driving home at night and we were on the motorway. And the motorways in Germany are not lit up at all. So
the autobahns where there's no speed limit?
There's no speed limit and there's no light. The only light you have is your own lights. And I know this now, but I didn't know that then. Those lights are very mesmerizing. You know, if you're just looking at the lights of the cars in front of you, which are usually red because it's their brake lights, and then you see the cars on the other side, which are coming towards you, it kind of hypnotized me. And I was tired and I fell asleep at the wheel. And
Wow.
we didn't hit anything, but my boyfriend hit the wheel and hit me because we were obviously like swerving, and thank God he wasn't asleep. And
Yeah.
he grabbed the wheel and we pulled over to the hard shoulder.
Oof.
And I was terrified
That
to
was a near
think that
miss.
it was a near miss. And after that, I've never liked driving at night. I don't drive at night
Yeah.
because
If you want,
it's very easy for me to fall asleep in a car.
if you want to join us and tell your anecdote of a near miss, a crash, or an
Mhm.
accident, I'll put the link that you need in the chat. And Danny, if you don't agree with the way I've told that story, then come in and correct me.
I think he's telling you his own anecdote. I can see. He says the first time I ever drove in an English right-handed car, he drove it on the wrong side of the street in France. It was crazy.
Yeah, those French.
Poor
And
thing.
Danny, we remember we used to go in reverse down those streets in Paris because it was so crazy to drive. We were in the car with a French guy who just drove around the streets of Paris in reverse all the time. That's how he drove. Absolutely crazy. We've got some other comments coming in. Christine is fussy when it comes to safety standards. Well,
Yeah.
if you are originally French, then that's totally understandable, Christine.
Hmm.
But for the rest, you're rather practical.
Uh-huh.
Norma's a little bit fussy, but not too much.
Uh-huh.
And Monica says, I crashed my car you crash into something. Remember that preposition into, to crash into the back of your husband's car. I'll bet he was happy. The insurance company, insurance company didn't take responsibility. There's a common collocation to take responsibility for something. So not of,
Really?
but for. Yeah, they should
Wow.
have taken responsibility for that. But it
Well, it
depends on.
depends if you maybe are on the same insurance plan, maybe
Yeah.
not. Yeah. Wow.
What bothers me is the smell of new. The new car. I love the smell of new cars. I love the smell of
Do
when the cars
you?
are new.
I
Yeah.
like it as well. I don't mind it, but I
I've
know
only
that some people
had
don't like
one.
it.
Most of my cars have been
Mhm.
secondhand. I've only had one new car, but it's a
Mhm.
lovely, lovely smell.
Uh-huh.
And Pilar says a car came directly over me,
Maybe behind you.
behind or towards you. But the car behind me had the crash. The driver who caused the accident had lost
Oh, consciousness.
consciousness. Use the noun, Pilar, consciousness. Lost consciousness.
So
Or
that's,
became
I mean,
unconscious.
I think she's replying in response to our anecdotes about falling asleep at the wheel. You don't realize
Yeah.
it's not just your life, but you put everybody else in danger as well. It's scary, very scary.
Exactly. So if you want to join us, if you have an anecdote, you want to tell it on the live stream, there's the link, StreamYard. Copy that. It's also in the chat. And come and tell us about your embarrassing anecdote. I've got an embarrassing one. I had when I was in the UK, I had two very old sports cars. I bought them secondhand, and one of them had a problem with rust, where the metal, with time and with moisture and with rain and with age, just the metal disappears with
And you're
rust.
talking about the 80s when the safety standards were not so hard, because I had a car like that in the 80s, end of the 80s, and in the passenger seat there was a hole where you put your feet. We had a mat over the top of it, but
Did
if
you
you
buy it from
lifted
the
the mat,
Flintstones?
it looked like it. If you
Took it out.
lifted the mat, you could actually see the road going as you were driving along the motorway.
Air conditioning. Fantastic.
You had to be really careful you didn't put your foot through.
What car was it? Do you remember the make?
It was a Renault 4.
French car, those French
French
cars.
car, but
The
it was in
car,
the time. It was in the 80s where a lot of cars rusted a lot. It was
yes,
very
they did.
common. Every
Big
time you took
problem.
them from the MOT, you had to get like repairs done on the rust. That doesn't happen nowadays, does it?
The car I bought was an MG, which was a British car, also
Oh,
problematic with
sexy
rust.
though.
And my
MG was a
mum,
sexy car.
it was a lovely car. I loved that car. But my
Uh-huh.
mum took me to collect it or pick it up. There's another phrasal verb, to pick it up. So I had to pick it up and drive it back to where I lived. My mum took me, and then my mum followed me in this lovely second-hand MG from 1972. It was built. It was a
Oh
lovely,
wow.
lovely car.
Uh-huh.
But when I stopped to put petrol in the car, I couldn't understand why my feet were getting wet. The petrol tank had rusted, and as the petrol was going in to the petrol tank, it was coming out the bottom and covering my feet.
That is really dangerous. Imagine if you'd been smoking in the car.
Well, you can't smoke it, yeah, but in the petrol station. But it was literally coming in the top and coming out the bottom of the
And at the
petrol
bottom.
tank. So
Uh-huh.
my mum had to tow me, and
Oh
to
wow.
tow, TOW, is to pull the car with a rope.
Mm-hmm.
She had to tow my car back to the house so that I could buy and install a new petrol tank in my second-hand MG.
So I bet you were happy about that as well.
Not really.
Maybe you should have scratched it before you started, then you wouldn't have been so disappointed.
It was a lovely car. I do love that car, though.
Uh-huh.
Have you ever
MGs were a
had
nice car. Mm-hmm.
Have you ever
Nice
had
car.
any crashes or accidents?
I have many. I told you I have a guardian angel. I've had crashes where people have crashed into me a few times, and I've had crashes where I've crashed into other people. Fortunately, all of those accidents have been very small ones. It's just been like, like with a red light, where I'm at the red light and there's a car that's suddenly gone into the back of me because they didn't see the red light. And so that kind of thing has happened.
Yep.
Or when I've gone over and to pull onto a roundabout. And for some reason in Spain, they have this stupid thing that they have roundabouts, and where the roads go off the roundabouts, at about 5 meters, they have a zebra crossing.
Yep.
Which I find really stupid. I don't
Yeah.
understand who designs the roundabouts in Spain. So, of course, very often you are pulling around the roundabout to go round to turn right, and there's a zebra crossing and you have to stop. And I've had 2 cars in the back of me because I've had to stop for the zebra crossing.
Yeah.
And they've seen that the roundabout is free, and then they've just driven and they've thought that I would have been continuing to drive, but I've had to stop because somebody's on a zebra crossing. That's happened to me twice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's
And
happened to
you,
me.
have you ever had that's happened to you?
Yeah, I've
also?
had 2 or 3 similar experiences in Valencia with minor crashes. But when I was 18 years old, I had quite a bad crash.
Oh.
It was my 18th birthday, and I was going to pick up my girlfriend from the train station, and I was following my friend because we were going out to celebrate my birthday. He was in his car, I was in my car, I was in front of him, and we were racing.
Craig, you were such a wicked boy.
Lynn, I was 18. I was 18 years old. Come on, I was 18. I was in my mum's car. We were racing. I was in front.
Were you drunk as well at the time or not?
No, I was sober. I was absolutely
Good.
sober. I didn't drink and drive because you spill it. So I braked, and then my friend hit the back of my car. So it was my friend who actually crashed into me quite badly, actually. So the insurance company paid both of us, but it was a very nasty crash.
And were you okay, or did you?
I was
have
okay.
problems with your neck?
I was quite young and strong in those days, so I damaged my neck a little bit for a couple of weeks. But yeah, we were okay. We don't have much time. I want to go on to some idioms connected to driving to finish, because there are some expressions that we use that in English they don't actually mean literally the words in them. So here are some idioms connected to driving and cars that don't actually relate to driving and cars. For example,
just to make the
just
class
to make
about
life
cars.
just to make life easy for you. So you can drive someone mad. Now, you're not actually driving someone anywhere. To drive someone mad is to cause somebody to be mad or crazy. You can drive someone crazy. Oh, my neighbors, they're always noisy. They're playing music really loudly. They are driving me crazy. They're driving me mad, or they're driving me up the wall.
Up the wall.
That's strange, isn't it? It doesn't
Yeah.
actually, they're not literally driving you up the wall, but you feel crazy. You feel completely insane because of what your neighbors or your children are doing. Or they're driving you round the bend, like the bend in the road.
The bend in the road. Yeah, it's a funny metaphor, that one, isn't it? They're driving you up the wall. They're driving you round the bend. Yeah, they're strange idioms.
I'll tell you what drives me round the bend here in Valencia. People who double park and leave the handbrake on.
Oh, yes.
That drives me mad.
Maybe the other people in the world don't know this, because I was shocked when I came to Valencia that people double parked. There's not a lot of parking spaces in Valencia.
Yeah.
So when you're parking next to the curb, some people start another line. And when I came to Valencia and I saw that, I thought, what? How antisocial is that? Until somebody told me, no, the cars in the second line, they don't have the handbrakes on. So in order to get out, you just have to push the car, and people who are going along the side of the street, they'll help you. You push the car and then you can reverse out. And when I discovered that, I remember saying to my husband, isn't that clever? I think that's really good. It's really good. It's really clever. And my husband said, I don't know. And I said, but I think it's practical. There's not a lot of space to park. And if you can do that and you don't. And I thought it was wonderful until the day when I got a car that had
With
left its handbrake on. And I was parked in and I could not get out and I could not get home. And it was like 9 o'clock at night. And the police wouldn't come out. Nobody will come out for you. And that's it. And so I had to get a taxi home and come back the next day to be able to see if I could get my car out.
Did it drive you round the bend?
That drove me round the bend. And since then, I've gone back to thinking this is a very bad idea. But it doesn't happen everywhere, does it? I don't know in South America if people double park.
Well, it happens.
In England, it doesn't happen at all, does it?
It happens a lot in Valencia because Valencia is very flat. But I don't think you could double park in San Francisco because it's up and down. It just wouldn't work. Eduardo says that his older sister used to have a Renault 4 with the gear on the
That was exactly the one I had with the hole in the
back.
That was exactly it. It was lovely. It was red. They were all red. All the Renault 4s were red or white. And mine was red, and it was great. And I loved having the gear stick on the dashboard. The dashboard is that front area. It's really practical. I prefer the gear stick on the dashboard to the gear stick here, but they stopped doing that for some reason.
If you are in the driving seat, you are in control of the situation. I think Lynne is very often in the driving seat. She's very in control of, very on the ball, you can say, very in control of what's going on. So if someone says, he's in the driving seat, he knows what he's doing, he's in control. You're not necessarily in a car, but you are in control of any situation. Yeah. Who's in the driving seat for the meeting? Who's going to be in control? Who's going to lead the meeting?
I think that's also a nice way of saying that I'm bossy.
No, that's negative. Bossy's negative. That's going too far. What about the driving force?
To be the driving force. So I think this is the idea that it's got nothing to do with driving, of course, but it means that it's to describe a person who motivates a lot of people. So somebody who gives the momentum to other people or other projects. You can also be the driving force behind a project or an idea. And it means that you give that idea or the project or other people, you give them the motivation, the momentum to move forward. And I think probably the metaphor is that the driving force is moving forward, driving forward. And it's something to people can be the driving force, or a policy, a government policy can be the driving force behind a change, for example.
Exactly. For example,
Yeah.
Apple computers, I don't know if you know, but Steve Jobs is very often credited with the success of Apple. But the person who actually invented the first Apple computer, the technical guy behind the success, was Steve Wozniak. But he
Uh-huh.
wasn't the driving force of the company. It was Steve Jobs who was in the driving seat. He was the
Uh-huh.
driving force behind the marketing
Mm-hmm.
and the success of Apple. But he wasn't actually the guy who invented a lot of the code and a lot of the technical things behind Apple.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Speaking of roads and driving, to be on the road to recovery is an idiom which means you're slowly recovering from something. Maybe you had an operation, maybe you've had COVID, maybe you've had some disease or some illness. When you are recovering, it's very common to say, oh, yes, she's doing well, or he's doing well. He's on the road to recovery. He's getting better. He's
Mm-hmm.
recovering.
It means that you're going in the right direction. So it's positive. If you're on the road to recovery, it's very positive. Mm-hmm.
To put the brakes on.
To put the brakes on. In the metaphor, that would mean to stop something or to slow something down. So, an example: imagine my daughters, for example, have some crazy idea that they want to do, and they have this big plan, and they're going to spend a lot of money and do a lot of things. And then maybe my husband and I might think, not sure whether that's a good idea. And we might have to put the brakes on that a little bit, which means to advise them to slow down or to try to help them slow down. You can also put the brakes on projects, sometimes in business. Maybe a project has started and it's in full swing and it's going ahead like normal, but then maybe some manager comes and he puts the brakes on the project, which means that he stops it or he slows it down.
I used to spend a lot of money on buying technology, buying gadgets and buying things, but I've put the brakes on that now and I don't spend anywhere near as much money. I've put the brakes on it. Christine says that her biggest pet peeve, that's a nice expression. A pet peeve is something that you really, really dislike, something specific that annoys you a lot. And that's people driving while playing music at full volume in the middle of the street with their windows down, letting all of the world know that they are there in your space. That's
Yep.
a pet peeve of mine as well, Christine. That I really dislike that. Yeah, they're so inconsiderate. Look at me, look at me. I've got a car and a really good stereo. Anyway, I think we'll leave it there for today. But before we go, we want to tell you if you want to consider studying, we've got some ideas for you. For example, if you're looking for one-to-one classes with Lynne, I think, Lynne, possibly in a few weeks, you might be taking on some new students. Is that right?
I might be. I'm quite full at the moment. But in 3 weeks' time, I am. A lot of my students are finishing. So if anybody is interested in online classes, I have more availability coming up from June onwards. Yeah. And I think you've got something, and they should go to putitlikethis.com and then you can get in touch with me and see what kind of courses I offer. But I think you've got something exciting coming up soon now. You have a new course, Craig.
Yes, over at EnglishMasterclass.net on the 10th of May, there is a conversation course starting. So if you're interested in that, I'll try and share my screen for a minute and show you the website if I can do it. And it's for 6 weeks, and you'll be studying twice a week on Tuesday and Thursday at the same time. No, I can't share my screen because I don't know what it... Oh, yes, I can. Here it is. So this is the webpage, englishmasterclass.net. And as I say, this coming Tuesday, the following Tuesday, May the 10th, is when we're starting. There are still 2 or 3, well, definitely 2 places available. So if you want to join that, go ahead to the website and register. And it's twice a week for 6 weeks on Zoom. And it's 117 euros as a reduced price for this course. You'll be saving 25%. And it's to practice and improve your conversation. So it's great that you're here watching and listening and writing, but it would be really great if you can speak and improve your speaking. So why don't you come along and join us? And what has happened to the screen? You've gone really strange there, Lynn. Oh, there you are. You're back. So yeah, 10th of May. 10th of May we're starting. If you want to join us, a group of motivated students practicing English on Zoom, and you'll have lots of opportunity to speak in that course.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right. Well, thanks you ever so much for all your contributions today. Everybody had lots of things to say about driving, so it was obviously a good topic.
And drive safe.
Yes.
Be careful on the roads because they can be very, very dangerous. Next week, I'll have a guest coming, and I'm not going to tell you who it is, but it's someone that you will enjoy getting to know, a very good friend of mine who has a lovely community online that you will find very, very useful for your English. So I recommend you join us next week for a chat with my friend. And that's at 8 p.m, same time next Wednesday. And Lynn will be back in 2 weeks. We'll be speaking about a different topic.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.